Hey, this is Ice-T from Body Count, and you're listening to Matt and Pete on Macho Grande.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/Macho Grande. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Alright guys, welcome to Macho Grande 203. I'm Matt.
And I'm Pete.
We kicked off the show today with the brand new track from Currents. It's called Into Despair. There you've got a new EP out, which came out on the 14th of December via Sharp Tone, which is called I Let the Devil In. And yeah, it sounded pretty heavy.
So this isn't the top 10 show.
Yeah.
Which some of you might have been expecting, because everyone else in the whole world has already put out their top 10s. Well, I don't know about you, Matt, but I like to do our top 10s over the festive period, just so it feels a little bit more Christmassy.
Well, and closer to the end of the year.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we're already sort of like towards the end of the second week of December.
Yeah, it's those magazines that they're online. They've put out their lists by like the last week of November.
Exactly.
I don't get that at all.
No. It's the end, or it's not even the end of year.
Yeah. No. I like our little tradition of I do it while I'm in the middle of my holiday, so I've got some time off. Get a Christmas drink on the go. The whole thing just feels a bit more festive. It's nice. So we thought today we're just gonna bash out a real quick show. Just going to be a nice, snappy, short little episode, couple of new tracks, and encourage all of you to send in your top 10s, because everyone who sends in their top 10 albums automatically gets entered to our end of year goodie bag prize. And Matt, let me tell you, let me just grab this stack of CDs.
Tell me.
It is looking good this year. I've got a stack of CDs here that includes the new 2 CD deluxe version of Appetite for Destruction.
Which is fantastic, but what can the listeners win?
You're not having any of these, mate. The Amity Affliction album, Slash Miles Kennedy album, the new Coheed and Cambria album, the new Shinedown album, Perfect Circle, Tremonti, Cold Night for Alligators, Wild Lies, The Royal, and there's another smaller pile to my right, and there's still stuff coming in. So one of you can win all of that. All you got to do is send in your top 10s either via voicemail, which we'll keep reading out during the show, or to our email address, and we'll just do our random, one winner takes all.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
Well, if anyone does win that and does want the Coheed album, I'll happily keep that for you.
In the garage as well, I might go in. I've still got some old boxes of promo from years ago where we used to get sent tons of shit, where for a long time I thought, do you know what, I'll throw this stuff away because there's some really cool stickers and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And they reached that point where they just became old, and I thought, no one's ever going to want this. But actually now they're so old that they're kind of cool again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I bet there's some right random stuff in there.
Roughly translated as, yeah, but now they're so old, they're taking up space.
Yeah. No, in one pile, I've got a box of Dry Kill Logic stickers.
Wow.
Right, no, but get this. This is from the first album, when they were originally called Hinge, and Roadrunner sent out all the promo materials. So somewhere I've got a box of Dry Kill Logic stickers with the Hinge logo on there.
Well, some lucky listener, get in your end of year top 10, info@machograndepodcast.co.uk, or you can voicemail us at 05603 689 842, and you can read us through your list on air in the end of year show.
You might get lucky, and you might even get like a Pulcus sticker or something in there.
If fingers crossed.
So, I'm guessing you've been cramming for your end of year list, but anything new that you wanted to mention as well, listening pile wise?
Listening pile wise, just a little EP from a mate's band, actually. They're called Thieves, from Northern Ireland. The name's spelt, it's all capitalised, but THVS. But I believe they're called Thieves. But they've got a really cool EP on their Bandcamp at the moment called Plague Widows.
What kind of stuff's this?
It's kind of like late 90s, noisy, scratchy, sort of hardcore, sort of post-punk.
Nice.
It's that kind of 90s helmety, sort of early at the drive. That kind of era of sort of scratchy DC punk rock, hardcore.
Cool.
But yeah, it's really good, and like I said, they've got a couple of free EPs on there actually from last year, but this is this year's one called Plague Widows. Like I said, it's just on their Bandcamp, THVS. Sorry, THVS.bandcamp.com. But yeah, I've been listening to that. It's just worth pointing out. Checked out. We played them on the last episode, the Wrist Meat Razor.
Oh yeah.
Album, and that's the only new stuff I've really been listening to. Everything else has just been sort of like reassessing my end of year 10, which I thought I was pretty solid on. I have actually been rather confidently solid on for at least a month, and now I'm wavering.
Brilliant. Oh, that's the anxiety setting in.
Yeah, well, it's just the sort of like, actually, have I really thought about it? Like, isn't this album better? You have been listening to it more than this one that's in your chart. So it's just that sort of like, after I'd got the list together, kind of reassessing
Yeah.
where I've put things, and maybe have I been too hard on something? Have I, So I was just sort of like reassessing where things go.
Right, okay.
And what about you? Have you crammed in anything new?
I'm trying to avoid my cramming everything for the top 10. And in fact, I've kind of cut myself off. So I'm going back and listening to albums that I have previously enjoyed throughout the year to kind of see where they stack up. But I'm not doing, because quite often I will now start to look at some other lists and go, shit, that album's appeared everywhere. I should have listened to that and I haven't, and I'll try and cram it. And it's like, that's not what your top 10's meant to be. It's meant to be the 10 albums that you've enjoyed most throughout the year. It's not some critical thing. So I've kind of cut myself off. I'm not doing that. But I am going through, just re-listening to stuff from earlier in the year and what have you. And one thing I have done is checked out a couple of post-rock bands, actually. So some of the post-rock lists, and you can't cram these because like some of these bands have 25-minute long songs. So, but I've been listening to Silent Whale Becomes a Dream because that seems to have popped up on just about every post-rock list. So that's
right.
that sounds a really, really good album. Like I say, it's too late in the day now to make my 10. Respire as well. That's another one that's a little bit more a bit more screamy post-rock. And then X-Ray is the big one that's new. And that is I've forgotten her name, but the lead singer from Daughter. I think it's Elena Torres or something like that. She's done her debut solo album, which technically it's not out until January, I think, the physical copy. But the digital one is out now. It came out a couple of weeks ago. So it's called X-Ray, which is EX and then colon and then RE. And it is lovely. Just really, really, really nice. She's got a gorgeous voice. So that's really cool.
Cool.
As far as the 10 goes, it's not in any particular order yet. I'm looking forward to working on that next week.
Yeah, well, like I said, mine's more of just like I had it nailed down with a 10 with the sort of 15 bubbling under included, but now I'm kind of like, maybe that 1 in 12 could really come in at sort of 10 or 8. So it's that. It's not, I haven't been doing I've overlooked that album. But it's just a kind of like looking at because I start doing the other thing that I sort of take into account for when I do my chart is like play counts on iTunes.
Yeah.
So just if it's something that I've played a lot more, I will then be like, actually, why is that sat at 12?
Yeah.
Do I like it more? So that's what I'm just doing. And it's always a pain when you're trying to nail these down.
Yeah. That's half the fun.
Yeah.
All right, so let's play Single Mothers. Have you ever heard of these?
I've heard of many single mothers. I'm sure many of them make music. But as a band, I've never heard of a band called Single Mothers.
Right. I feel like we should know this band, and we don't. They recently released a surprise album which is called Through a Wall, which is via Big Scary Monsters, but they've been around since 2008. And they're sort of in with like Death Wish and those kind of bands. Like they've toured with loads and loads of cool bands, and they have this weird, they're like currently a 3-piece, but they have this revolving door policy of band members. So the lineup seems to be constantly shifting, and has always just have this policy of if you're a friend and the music's good, you're in. And it's just constantly shifted the entire time. But they've been out with a ton of decent bands. And the press release just caught my eye because it just said for fans of Every Time I Die, The Chariot and Birds in a Row.
Right.
So I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to have to give this a go. So yeah, Single Mothers. And this track is called Tan Line. And then brackets, like passing through a wall.
Spread out softly in some form of time. Who you and I were subscribed to a piece of universe, to an unanswered call, and I keep searching, like passing through a wall, like passing through a wall, like passing through a wall. Ooh, yeah, you lost me in that blast beat. I'm hot and basking in all of that transacting, soaking up the tension, let the energy collapse.
So that was Single Mothers. Yeah, quite interested by that.
Yeah, that's cool. It's kind of like the Stooges. It's got a bit of Iggy Pop and the Stooges kind of vibe.
I mean, I've got to imagine that if you go back into their back catalogue, it's probably going to be quite diverse given the amount of people that have been in the band. I mean, it says, certainly on the Wikipedia, I think it said as of something like 2013, there'd been something over 16 different members.
Wow.
So, yeah. And they have had stuff out on Death Wish as well, so...
That's a real open door, sort of like rotating band.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been out with some cool bands as well, so I'm not sure how that name slipped us by, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's loads of bands out there that we just don't know about, sadly, as best as we try. But that's why we play them on the show.
Let's do the news.
Right. So, did you see there's a Rammstein board game coming out?
No.
Yes.
Is it on fire?
It does say does not include pyro. It's a game that boasts over 400 questions in both the band's native German as well as English, and is intended for 2 to 6 players over the age of 16 years old. You can pick it up over at their official merch store right now, and it does not come with pyro.
Now, what was the game that had like a volcano and like tiles of lava slowly took over the board game as you played? Do you remember that?
No.
Okay, I'd like to think that the Rammstein one just slowly catches fire, and then that'd be quite cool.
Yeah, I like to think that the pieces are things like, inflatable penises and dildos and flamethrowers. Or maybe it's each of them or the characters in the board game. Who knows? But that's actually available on now. And like I said, it does actually say pyro not included on the box.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a funny Christmas gift, I suppose.
Probably the most bonkers thing this week has got to be the Cannibal Corpse stuff with Pat. Have you heard about Pat O'Brien?
I've vaguely been following it. It's all a bit weird. I saw yesterday where he was released.
So like if people don't know, basically he's been arrested for burglary and assault of a police officer, breaking into somebody's house, and during this time his house was on fire and firefighters were trying to put out the blaze but failing due to exploding ammunition, and then they've since found military grade flamethrowers in his house. He seems to have been absolutely on one because he was ranting about the rapture and that there were people after him, and then he had a knife. So he went into prison. He's appeared now. He's now been set. Was it a bond of something like $50,000, which has gone through?
Yeah.
And a fundraiser's also been set up for him to help with the loss of all of his stuff by his bandmate Paul's wife, which you can go to. If you want to check that out, it's mightycause.com. And she's just sort of said, look, don't jump to conclusions. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it just seems a bit of a... That's more than I kind of knew of it. I just knew it was a bit of a... This is all a bit too crazy. I mean, with obviously the forest fires in California is one thing, but then just like everything else is kind of like, what's going on?
Yeah,
just
it's
kind of
nuts.
Lost the plot.
So of course Pat O'Brien he's a long-standing guitarist. Like he's been with Cannibal Corpse as well since I would say the mid-90s, like 97, something like that.
Have they fired him, or is...
Not that I've read, no. Don't think so.
Okay.
Not read anything about that.
That's the one bit I wasn't sure of, is where the band stand on all of this.
They
or if
seem to have come out pretty positive in his favour.
Right.
So, I mean, we just don't know. But something very, very odd has gone on there. In other odd news, the BBC recently interviewed Jared Threatin about the whole recent tour.
I read this. Fantastic.
So, oh God, this guy's such a dick. He now claims to have been behind not only the sort of masterminding the whole thing, but he thinks he did his own undoing by way of creating the hype and thereby filling the empty rooms. So he's sort of, and lots of other websites have now sort of given him a load of grief over this, saying that these claims definitely came out after everybody realised the whole thing was a sham.
Yeah.
But
But he's now saying, yes, the whole thing was a publicity stunt, but the music's very real.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah. Well,
It will be interesting to see.
Booked a full UK European tour with a fake following in hope that. I mean, the thing is, like we discussed in the last episode, it could have gone the other way, where the places started filling up because it was one of those kind of like.
Yeah, if he'd have carried it on, it could have swung. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It could have been that kind of like comedy crossover, but both the music didn't hold up.
No.
To what the reality was as well, and then the personality as well didn't fit. The whole, like if he had been a genuine sort of Tommy White, he's just a serious oddity. Instead, he just came across as a bit of an ego creep.
So presumably now, though, he's going to come back like next summer or something with a new album and probably try and book another tour. Do you reckon? What do you think is going to happen? They're like, do you think people will turn up?
I think he'll get opening on download. But no, genuinely, I would be stunned if anyone cared in sort of like 5-6 months.
Yeah, I agree.
It would just be like, what? Oh, that guy? He's doing something new? Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's the sort of thing of like, if he had really wanted to do this as a project, like the whole kind of like campaign itself as like a sort of here's how to cheat the music industry or whatever, he could have filmed it, documented it, and done it as a sort of like, have you ever seen like Exit Through the Gift Store?
Oh yeah.
In a kind of like an interesting sort of subversion of things.
Yes,
and
actually, that would have been great. Yeah,
an interesting character as well, like Mr. Bramos, just and sort of having a sort of Spinal Tap-ish vibe, or Tommy Wiseau sort of. I don't know. There could have been something to capitalize on, but instead it was just a blatant fraud.
Yeah. And
audiences, especially rock audiences, are a lot more savvy and don't like people cheating their way to the top.
No.
I think the rock community is far more critical of that, whereas, you've got like your pop sing shows, like Britain's Got Talent or whatever, where you could potentially cross over into that kind of, you're that weird oddity, but then you're kind of beloved.
Well, I mean, the other thing is as well, is like his style of music as well. It's not like he's going for some new hip, version of our world. He's firmly more in at the kind of Bloodstock end, really.
Yeah, and even then, it is very MOR. I mean, it's not even sort of like cutting edge or anything. It's just sort of like, yep, that is traditional rock with that healthy scoop of cheese from the late 80s. So, yeah.
I've not put much else down, but the other thing that was interesting was that Chimera guitarist Rob Arnold has now officially launched this project that he's talked about for quite a while called The Disaster, which he's paired up with Matt Demko. The album's called Healing Process, and it comes out as we record in a couple of days, this Friday.
Cool.
And I don't think I put anything else down. I think that was it.
The only other thing I'd seen was that, again, this it was more interesting because of the additional details of it, but it was that Norma Jean are working on their new album number 8.
Cool.
And it's worth noting because Corey Brandon, the frontman, tweeted, be working on some new songs for Norma Jean with my brother Matthew. Matt has worked with us on Redeemer. He played a ton throughout that record, as well as helping write with me on the majority of Meridional. He'll be in the studio with us as well. We're very excited to work with him on LP8. So like I said...
So is Matt is he the guitarist that stepped down from playing live?
No,
No.
he
Oh, right.
is just helped co-write
gotcha, okay.
Gamer and Meridional.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
it was just that news where I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Cool. Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Album 8 in 2019.
Nice.
Fingers crossed.
We've got, well, tell you what, let's play Polar, and then we've got a voicemail from Ross, so we'll play that afterwards.
Yes.
So Polar are back. They've got a new album. Just wanted to sneak this in because this is out in the spring of next year. Although, on the press list I've put spring 2018, which is wrong. So this is the first taste from the new album. They're now signed with A Rising Empire. So these guys are from London, and if you're not familiar with Polar, they had a bunch of good tunes a little while back and got quite a bit of attention. And then I'd kind of forgotten about them a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, because I'm a big fan of Polar.
Yeah.
I really, really liked the debut album. I loved the second album, and then I believe it was the third album didn't sort of grab me as much, but I'm loving this single.
Yeah, this sounds great. I really like this.
So I'm very excited to see where this new album goes. I'm sure. Yes. So it was the last album, No Cure, No Savior, was good, but it didn't grab me in the same way Shadowed by Vultures did from 2014. That was a fantastic album.
Yeah, I don't think I listened to that last album that much.
Oh, it's so good. The last album's good. It's just, like I said, it wasn't as... Shadowed by Vultures was just something. It was one of those lightning in a bottle moments. But I'm loving this new single, so I'm very excited to see.
I hope this does well because it felt like, again, not so much on that last album, but the one before. It felt like they were riding quite a good wave. It felt like people were behind them. Like there was quite a bit of decent press as well. So yeah, fingers crossed for this. So this is called Drive.
These are our words, son, forever.
That's the brand new single by Polar that was called Drive. We've got a voicemail from Ross. If you want to send us a voicemail, it's 05603 689 842. You can leave a recording. We can play it on the show as you're about to hear. It would be really cool when you send in your top 10s if you wanted to do it this way, because then we can actually play your top 10 on the show, obviously. So, right, yeah, this is from Ross.
Evening, lads. It's Ross from Glasgow again. Just returning from another gig, thought I'd give you a wee review. So it was a Perfect Circle tonight, which was not that hotly anticipated by me, considering, well, I think I emailed in my review of the album at the time when it came out, and I think I gave it an 8 out of 10 or something. That has dwindled somewhat over the last while, and I basically realised that I liked the first half. Kind of liked the first half, didn't like the second half, so that probably dropped down to about a 6 over the last few months. So I bought the tickets, or my mate bought the tickets close to when the album came out, and at the time I was excited. I was less excited by the £48 price tag, which is probably one of the most expensive single gigs I've paid to go see. But I thought, well, what the hell? I've never seen Perfect Circle before, never seen Tool before. Maynard is like one of my heroes, so I was like, well, at least I'll get to go see him. So, Roll On tonight wasn't exactly hyped for it, but I thought, well, going in with expectations low, maybe I'll get surprised. And yeah, I was surprised actually. It was really, I really did enjoy it. The new stuff, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, it sort of sounds like them. It's not as good, but it's still quite good in some ways. I know you guys weren't really digging it at all, but I genuinely like the first half of the album. I think from like up to about track 5 or something. I think So Long and Thanks for the Fiction. I like that song, and that's like the last one that I like on that. And then it just goes downhill. And I get the feeling that the band kind of know that. Because they played those songs, like every single one of those songs, Contrarian and all these other ones, Eat the Elephant. They played one song from later on in the album, which is that one with all the counting in it, which is fucking shit. And it sounded shit. They played that, but they chucked in loads of old stuff, loads and loads off the first album, hit all the high notes off the first album I expected, except for Three Libras, they didn't play that, but Good For You off the second. A couple of covers in there. One from that Disastrous Covers album that they did, and one amazing tribute to Malcolm Young from AC/DC that played Dog Eat Dog. I'm not a big AC/DC fan, but that was kind of cool to hear them do that. Light Show was amazing. The funny thing is that because my main reason for going was to see Maynard Keenan in the flesh, I actually didn't see that because, and I don't know if this is a tradition of theirs, but he stood at the back on a platform completely in darkness the entire show. Was not a single time, except for sort of a little bit of illumination from other lights, but there was no spotlight on him. You didn't see his face the whole gig. And I suppose the reason behind that is because they don't want it to be like, oh, this is like Maynard from Tool's other band. They want it to seem like its own thing. Which it does, I suppose. And Billy Howardell was like right in the spotlight doing his thing, sang a lot of the songs, like backing vocals a lot of the songs. And I got a funny vibe, like they have a sort of Serge Tankian, Darren Malakian kind of deal, where Billy just wants to be the main guy, but obviously Maynard is the main guy. So I don't know about that. It was kind of odd, but genuinely and really enjoyed it. Actually maybe want to go back and listen to the album again, just the first album. So anyway, this is probably going to hit your end of year episode, so congratulations on another year of awesome shows, and I will send you my list separately. I'm not going to bore you with it much now, and yeah, all the best. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for that, man. Appreciate you phoning in. It's great hearing your quick reviews of gigs. We really appreciate.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd certainly it's worth noting that Maynard does that a lot, standing at the back. Does it with Tool as well. I mean, he tended to do it less with Perfect Circle, but would wear wigs more and costumes more with Perfect Circle. But Tool, he certainly. On the recent tour, he was wearing riot gear,
and he'll quite often stand like to the left and behind like the drum riser or something. Yeah. You know, he will quite often be just buried at the back of the stage, which I get if you've spent a lot of money on the ticket and you're a fan of him, and then that's what you get. Why you'd be disappointed, but that like Matt says, that is what he's always done. I mean, I remember going to Download when they played. Oh God, what year did they do Download?
2006.
I remember a really good friend of mine obsessed with Tool, and he'd never seen them before, and he was well excited. And I met up with him the next day. I said, "How was it for you?" And he hated it, and he was like, "None of the screens had the band, and you couldn't see Maynard." And it's like, and I was like, yeah, that's what they do there. Like all the video screens, it's not of the band like a normal gig. It's all the projections and the art and all the weird visuals. Yeah. And Maynard, he'll just be painted blue and naked at the back of the stage somewhere. Yeah, but he hated it for that. Like he was so annoyed about it.
I mean, the thing is, like, I'm kind of at that point now where it's like, if they aren't, because sometimes they don't have like some really interesting like visuals going on, and it's like recycled sort of like effects from album covers or something. Or I mean, occasionally they do really cool ones where they splice together the music videos and extra cuts from music videos and make an actual performance thing. Yeah. But other times it could just be something like, where I'm like, it'd be really cool if Maynard was just doing something. I do get a little bit frustrated with that, but maybe it's just because, like, watching it on YouTube, you do just watch it and think, yep, well, they're doing their thing, whereas being at the gig is different. I mean, certainly when I saw them in 2006, it was just like, I don't care, Tool are playing.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me. And certainly when I saw him at Nottingham Arena, it never really crossed my mind. I mean, he is there doing his thing. So, I mean, certainly in the case of Perfect Circle, I've always kind of seen it as it is Billy's project, really. I know Maynard is the bigger like personality, but like I certainly see it very much as a 50-50, if not slightly more Billy's thing than Maynard's.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but at the same time, I do just think, like, well, again, it is just sort of like, it's surprising that he's treating it the same. Whereas I know he wasn't doing that when initially Perfect Circle started. It was that's our distinct difference. But then, he is a very reclusive character. Yeah. And he doesn't like the attention anyway.
No, I mean, I think that's ultimately what it boils down to. He can call it whatever he likes, but clearly he doesn't. But like
certainly interesting that not really playing much of the new one.
Yeah, very cool. Loads of big old tunes, because obviously that's one of the complaints that people have thrown at Perfect Circle. I mean, certainly if you imagine Maynard writing the list, and now that sounds a little bit more like Billy's gone, no, hold on, we need to play these bangers.
Yeah.
Anyway, many thanks for that, Ross. Keep sending those in. I hope you send your top 10 in that way as well. That'd be cool.
Yep, please do.
So, yeah, we're going to close out on the Intersphere. We're going to do a quick bit of film chat. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about today or talk about?
No.
Right. I've got some right random films this week, so let me just get through these. Threads. Have you ever seen this? It's a 1984 BBC film written by Barry Hines.
No.
Right, Threads keeps just appearing in lists, and I've had it on my list of, I should watch this at some point. And basically, there's like a nuclear attack that destroys a NATO base sort of like 15, 20 miles away from Sheffield, and the town and the town hall just fall into absolute chaos, and then this nuclear attack just devastates the town. And it's sort of loosely set up as a sort of slightly documentary style, and then at the same time you're getting this story about this couple that are sort of separated as the fallout spreads. It's really quite disturbing, and it stays with you. So even though this was filmed like in the 1980s, it's a really weird little horrible film about what could happen in a nuclear attack. But what interested me more now, seeing it now, is it's really cool when you see quite old films showing lots of town centres that because obviously all our town centres have changed, so much.
Yeah.
And the whole film was shot in and around Sheffield, so there's tons and tons of footage of the city centre as it was in the mid-80s. So, if it's on, it's well worth a watch. It's quite a cool film.
Right.
Certainly in our current climate, it's fucking terrifying still. It holds up really well. The Levelling, which is one of the BFI film winners of the year, which is this kind of weird but beautifully sort of quite sad story about this woman who returns home for the tragic death of her brother, and she's running this dairy farm. Wouldn't say it was one of the most exciting films to watch. The Omega? Is it Omega or Omega? The Omega Man. The Omega Man, which is Charlton Heston. Again, 1971, based on Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. I'd just never seen it before, so I just wanted to watch it. It's not great.
Okie dokie.
Certainly not as good as the Will Smith one from a few years later. I watched Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome for the first time.
Yeah, you texted me after
Fucking
you
hell.
watched it.
God, that film is awful.
Yep.
What a terrible film. Shocking. Summer of '84. Have you seen this?
Oh, isn't that... Oh, wait.
So this is quite new.
Yeah, but isn't it the... written and directed by... his name's just got out of my head. I might be wrong.
Oh, this is another one of these kind of post-Stranger Films kind of films where they're like, right, let's make it a bit 80s and get a group of kids and, just kind of rip on that whole genre. So this group of kids suspect that a local neighbouring police officer is a serial killer, and they're sort of out, investigating.
Yes. Yeah.
It starts off terribly, and it has that really awkward, horrible thing where somebody's trying to write kids' Gaudi humour, which certainly is a mid-30s man. It's horrible. But then it weirdly picks up, and actually by the end, it's quite a cool little film. It's pretty good. I think it might be on Netflix as well.
Oh, it's not what I thought it was. I was thinking of the film Mid-90s.
Oh, okay, right.
Directed because that's written and directed by Jonah Hill.
Oh, right, cool. Oh no, I don't know that.
It's supposed to be really good, but that's what I was getting confused with. Sorry.
Then I watched The Festival, which this is Joe Thomas of The Inbetweeners and written by Ian Morris, who wrote The Inbetweeners. So much as you might expect, it's basically like The Inbetweeners humour, but set at Glastonbury. It's just awful.
Yep.
I mean, one thing that became apparent is that you could make a very, very good comedy film about a festival. This definitely isn't it.
It just even by going from the trailer, it looks like it throws in all the cliches.
It doesn't know where to go. It ends so badly, and the whole thing is so cheesy. There are a few moments where you could sort of feel like you're in the festival. You get those sort of that all comes flooding back, but never quite enough to just give you the fear. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it just made me think when I saw the trailer. It just made me think, oh, this is going to encourage people to behave like this at a festival.
Yeah, some of it's just moronic and not in a good way. It's just it's terrible, absolutely terrible. I really need to watch some better films because the next up is Venom.
Oh
God! And this is bad. It's just not a good film.
No, it isn't, and it's frightening how much money it's made.
I didn't get it. I mean, it kind of started off promising enough-ish, but by the end... Yeah, well, I would call it loosely entertaining for the first...
Yeah, I mean, certainly, what's his name?
Well, the guy who plays... Tom Hardy.
Yeah, Tom Hardy. I mean, he certainly he goes for it.
He's okay. I mean, I'm not a massive Tom Hardy fan, but he's okay.
But he kind of does a sort of Jim Carrey Liar Liar, and he really goes for it. And he's kind of in a different film to everyone else.
yeah, okay.
And then people. It just sort of descends into that CGI mess.
The CGI isn't good either.
I know.
Some of these CGI is really a bit crappy, and it just becomes a mess by the end. And the other kind of bad guy, he's just rubbish. It's such a weak kind of character.
It's also sort of weird and stupid, and then at the end, it's just like, oh no, yep, this, that's a great film. Let's make a sequel. This is all going to be good. And then you're kind of left with this kind of like, maybe if this film came out in say like 94,
Yeah.
it might have been acceptable, but like coming out in 2018, that's just not good enough. It's just not a good film. I watched it and thought, well, I'm glad I watched it, but it's rubbish.
Yeah, no, it's just poor. It really is.
And then what else have you managed to squeeze in?
Right, I've saved the best for the last, and I say
No,
best
you
loosely. The Predator.
God damn.
Wow, what a batshit crazy movie The Predator is. It does not know what it wants to be. It is an absolute mess of a film. I mean, it's weirdly entertaining at times, and bizarrely, some of the humour is actually really on point and quite funny. And then you have this.
Then they're doing Tourette's jokes.
Oh, the Tourette's joke. You have this weird ramshackle cast of like these cons. That's weird as hell, that little group. But then at times it's weirdly amusing. Like, it feels like, yeah, you could have made like a buddy comedy horror Predator film, but it doesn't stick with it. It's such a flighty mess of, we're going to go over here.
There's like, and the thing is, like, when you actually sort of put the premise together, none of it makes sense.
It's such a mess. I mean, it really feels like it's been written by 100 different people.
Oh yeah, I mean it's clear. You mean you can tell that the entire final third was reshot.
Yeah, and the Predator, like, somehow they've managed to really not make him cool. Like, he's in it too much. I mean, that's the trouble, is that he's in it too much. You know, if you think how good that first film is, you know, it's these fleeting glimpses, you know, and it builds up the suspense. This, I mean, he looks awful, absolutely terrible.
The thing is, although if you strip out the intro. And then just nail it down to that underground bunker scene where it's on the operating table. That entire sort of 5-10 minute sequence is amazing, and the Predator's never looked better.
The dialogue there, though, in that bit is shocking.
Shocking.
And when they're actually calling it a Predator,
there was a genuine moment of tension. Whenever I've forgotten the actress's name, but whenever she is hiding, there's an actual moment of like, okay, right, yeah, I can see where we're going, and then it instantly becomes flabby.
I will give it that it's a lot more splattery and gore heavy than I ever imagined it would be, which is fine. You know, it's not afraid to go uber violent at times, which is quite cool.
People just get killed off to get rid of them. It's like, okay, we're done with them now. We don't know what to do with them now, and like, there's no deaths for about 50 minutes.
Yeah, and then it suddenly drags like crazy. Just as you think, oh, maybe I could get into this, it starts to drag.
But
like
then there's
crazy.
like the whole sort of like, what's going on with the sort of like, they've kind of like lobotomized a predator dog.
Oh, the dog.
It's become a pet, but then they don't really do anything with it, and it fetches a grenade for some reason, and then they don't really do anything with it, and then the predator is being hunted by a super predator because that predator wants to help humanity, but if it wants to help humanity, why did it start the film by killing everyone?
The whole thing is just, I mean, I will give it that, like, if you look at it in that light of, take some of the really crazy 80s films like Masters of the Universe or something, just how nuts and bonkers those films were, and it didn't make, it didn't matter.
It had the potential to sort of like, I don't know, it just had the potential to be something good and something more.
Honestly, I think there is sort of a good film in there, but this isn't it at all.
And I don't understand people who were saying, what are you talking about? It's not bad. I was like, no. It's so bad.
I'd say it's so bad it's good. It's still not good. But
it is barely a film.
Yeah.
I mean, it barely hangs together. The ending is so stupid. There was the one interesting thread that they sort of teased it and then completely jettisoned it, was like when they're talking about sort of harvesting humans and doing something, and like then they're sort of hinting at doing something like you could have really explored just that one thing, but instead they throw another 20 different bizarre things on top of that, and then make autism a superpower.
Oh God, yeah.
They want to harvest autism. I was just like, that's not how autism works. And then like making the autistic kid some kind of superhuman. It's just like, that's not how autism works either. It's just so...
No, I mean, by the end, me and Joe just looked around at each other and what is this?
Yeah. I should just say, I'm sorry, Joe, for making it. That it is so bad.
I've subjected us to some quite awful films this week.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, on a list, like, that
is a bad list of films.
That's a bad run of things. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Venom, The Predator.
She left me to it on Mad Max. She went, she'd seen that before anyway. But
you're a glutton for punishment. Well,
anyway, anything from you on the film front?
I did watch something, and I just can't remember what it was. I'm just double checking my list because obviously I'm making that ready for end of year. No, it must have been. It was something from last year that I managed to sort of cram in. But and I also rewatched this week. I forgot how good it was. The film Control, which is sort of a biopic about Joy Division and Ian Curtis.
Oh right, cool. I've not seen that.
Oh, such a good film. Like I just completely forgot how good it is. It's filmed and shot by Anton Corbin, who's like a really famous photographer. He's done loads of like videos for bands as well, and photo shoots of bands and stuff like that. But this is his first major film, and it's worth checking out if you've not seen it.
I'd like to see that. Cool.
It's on Amazon Prime, and I just forgot how good it was. It was just like, it came up, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll check that out again. And I forgot how brilliant it is, because obviously Ian Curtis was quite an interesting character.
Anything else?
No.
Right, so the next time we see you will be the end of year special. Matt and I will be running down our top 10 albums. We need your lists, so don't forget, send in your top 10 albums, info@machograndepodcast.co.uk.
All entrants will be put into the lottery to win all those albums that Pete has been piling up. Or you can phone us, as we mentioned at the top of the show, 056 03 689 842. And if it's easier, you can also direct message us on either Facebook or on Twitter at Macho Grande Pod. And we'll include it into the list, and then I can actually start compiling people's lists to get a definitive listener top 10.
Very good. So we're going to close out the show on a band called the Intersphere. This track is called Mind Over Matter. They're a German band. I don't know much about these guys, but the album's called The Grand Delusion, which is out now via Long Branch Records. And if you like the sound of this is in the goodie pile too, a copy of their album.
Cool.
So there you go. Send in those top 10s.
We'll speak to you after Christmas. Have a good one.
Have a good Christmas.
None of my pending questions ever go up in smoke. This nightmare turned into reality long ago. Should be the most pleased human being, cause life embraces me. I found a crack into the surface, make me doubt. Under the lack of ease, set new priorities. No self-reflecting, time to linger over. New ways to
over Macho Grande?
No, I don't think I'll ever get over Macho Grande.